Right. Welcome to this explainer on the Irish ambulance strike. It's an issue landing squarely on the doorstep of every household in the country. So let's cut the messing and get straight to the hard data.
Okay, let's dive into this. 2,000 members of the SIP2 and Unite trade unions are walking out. Now, for the average working family in Ireland, this means immediate, severe disruption to the national ambulance service today. This isn't just some abstract statistic on the news. It's a massive, real-world logistical nightmare for a healthcare system we rely on day in and day out.
So what's driving this? It's a fundamental clash, really, a core divide between the frontline working families and their state employer, the HSE.
And this brilliantly illustrates exactly where the deadlock lies. You've got to look at both sides of the coin here. On one hand, you have our ambulance personnel. They're seeking recognition for 15 years of massive modernization, upskilling, and taking on serious added clinical responsibilities. And crucially, they want this recognition without any further preconditions. But across the table, the HSE points straight to officially brokered proposals from the Workplace Relations Commission and the Labour Court. Those state mechanisms firmly linked any pay increases to agreed structural reforms. So essentially, we're looking at a massive standoff over how and when this pay should be awarded and exactly what strings are attached to it.
To really grasp the reality on the ground for these workers, just listen to Unite representative Owen Drummy. He points out that ambulance personnel have completely transformed the service from what used to be a basic patient transport model right into a modern pre-hospital emergency care service. I mean, they're out there on the roads delivering advanced clinical interventions that literally save lives long before a patient ever sees the inside of an A&E. From the union's perspective, they've been waiting 6 long years for this high-level expertise to be properly recognized in their pay packets, and honestly, their patience is just well and truly gone.
But we absolutely have to look at the HSE's position too. Management are expressing deep regret over this industrial action, especially after 2 years of intense negotiations.
Let's break down the actual numbers the HSE put on the table. The HSE and the government actually accepted a pay proposal back in July 2025 from the WRC and the Labour Court, which the union members ultimately rejected last September. It included an offer of between 3 to 14% in reform-linked improvements, and that was stacked right on top of a standard 9.25% increase under the General Public Sector Pay Agreement. Now, the HSE argues this shows a really robust determination to resolve the dispute, but the unions are holding firm that tying long overdue pay to even more modernization is simply a non-starter for them.
Which brings us to the escalation timeline. And what this means for the average Irish household in the coming weeks is serious.
The escalation here is steep, so if you're trying to manage a busy household, you really need to know exactly what's coming down the tracks. Today, we are seeing a work to rule, but the disruption scales up dramatically from here. On May 12th, there's a 24-hour strike. Come May 19th, that doubles to a 48-hour stoppage. And then on May 26th, we're looking at a massive 72-hour stoppage with warnings of even more action in June. Make no mistake, for working families, the National Ambulance Service is going to be severely impacted as this month rolls on.
So how are we protecting the Irish patient in all of this? We need to talk about the practical impacts and the contingency plans.
Because the service is facing such massive hits, the HSE has had to trigger major contingency plans to keep families safe. The 999 service is still operating, but you have to understand, it is strictly for life or death emergencies only. We're talking about cardiac or respiratory arrest or severe trauma like a bad road traffic collision. If your situation isn't immediately life-threatening, you've got to use alternative out-of-hours healthcare options. The HSE is urgently asking the public to rely on local injury units, your GP surgeries, the local community pharmacies, and dedicated mental health supports. It's absolutely vital we all follow this guidance just to keep the few available ambulances free for those who are genuinely in critical need.
And that urgent need to protect the public is perfectly captured by the Irish Patients Association. They've stated black and white, patients must not be used as pawns in any industrial dispute by any party. They're putting out a really stark plea for patient safety here, calling directly on Minister Jennifer Carroll MacNeill to personally intervene and bring everyone back around the table. It is a very sobering reminder of the real human cost right at the dead center of this whole dispute.
Which leaves us with one massive lingering question. Will the state bridge the gap before that 72-hour stoppage hits later this month? At the heel of the hunt, both sides are deeply dug in, but the clock is ticking loudly for the Irish public. Will a resolution be found, or are working families facing totally unprecedented disruption to emergency care? We'll be watching very closely. Thanks a million for joining me for this explainer. Stay informed and mind yourselves out there.